Question 1. The assessment process reveals that a new open-source Snort intrusion detection system, IDs, is being deployed within a complex Cisco network environment. Which approach to conducting the impact assessment for this deployment best aligns with professional security best practices and regulatory expectations for network security? Option A. A minimal assessment focused solely on the technical configuration of Snort, assuming existing security measures are adequate and without deep consideration of business impact. Option B. A comprehensive assessment that identifies critical network assets, analyzes potential threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the Cisco infrastructure, and evaluates the potential business impact of security incidents, informing Snort's configuration and integration with incident response. Option C. An assessment that prioritizes the technical capabilities of Snort without a thorough understanding of the specific Cisco network architecture and potential cascading effects of security breaches. Option D. An assessment that focuses only on the immediate technical detection capabilities of Snort, disregarding the broader business implications of a security incident. The correct answer is B. A comprehensive assessment that identifies critical network assets, analyzes potential threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the Cisco infrastructure, and evaluates the potential business impact of security incidents, informing Snort's configuration and integration with incident response. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in determining the appropriate scope and depth of an impact assessment for a new Snort intrusion detection system, IDs, deployment within a Cisco network environment. The challenge lies in balancing the need for thoroughness to ensure effective security and compliance with regulatory requirements against the practical constraints of time, resources, and potential operational disruption. A poorly executed impact assessment can lead to misconfigurations, missed vulnerabilities, inadequate response capabilities, and ultimately, a failure to meet security objectives and regulatory mandates. Careful judgment is required to identify critical assets, potential threats, and the cascading effects of a security incident on business operations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive assessment that prioritizes critical assets and potential threats relevant to the specific Cisco network architecture and the intended use of Snort. This includes identifying all network segments, devices, and data flows that the Snort IDS will monitor. It necessitates understanding the potential impact of a security breach on these assets, considering both direct financial losses and indirect consequences such as reputational damage or regulatory penalties. The assessment must also consider the integration of Snort with existing security tools and incident response procedures, ensuring that alerts generated by Snort can be effectively processed and acted upon. This aligns with best professional practice by adopting a risk-based methodology, focusing resources where they are most needed, and ensuring that the deployment contributes to overall security posture and compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Focusing solely on the Snort configuration without considering the broader network context and business impact represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach neglects the interconnectedness of network components and the potential for a security incident to have far-reaching consequences beyond the immediate scope of the IDS. It is professionally unacceptable as it fails to provide a holistic view of security risks and may lead to the deployment of an IDS that is ineffective against sophisticated attacks or fails to protect critical business functions. Implementing Snort with minimal configuration changes and assuming existing security measures are sufficient is another professionally unacceptable approach. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adequately assess the specific threats and vulnerabilities that Snort is intended to address. It risks leaving the network exposed to new or evolving threats that existing controls may not adequately mitigate, potentially leading to regulatory noncompliance and security breaches. Adopting a purely technical approach that overlooks the business implications of security incidents is also a critical failure. While technical expertise is vital, understanding how a security breach impacts business operations, customer trust, and regulatory obligations is paramount. This narrow focus can result in an IDS that technically functions but fails to provide the necessary security to protect the organization's core interests, leading to potential legal and financial repercussions. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach impact assessments by first identifying and prioritizing critical business assets and functions. This is followed by a thorough threat modeling exercise to understand potential attack vectors relevant to the Cisco network environment and the specific deployment of Snort. The assessment should then evaluate the potential impact of these threats on critical assets, considering both technical and business consequences. Finally, the findings should inform the Snort configuration, rule tuning, and integration with incident response processes to ensure effective threat detection and mitigation, thereby meeting regulatory requirements and safeguarding organizational interests. Question 2. Which approach would be most effective in assessing the impact of implementing open-source Snort for intrusion detection within a Cisco network environment, ensuring both enhanced security and operational stability? Option A. Conduct a pilot deployment of Snort in a non-critical network segment, monitor performance and alert fidelity, and iteratively refine configurations based on observed data before a wider rollout. Option B. Immediately deploy Snort with the most aggressive rule sets across the entire network to maximize threat detection capabilities from the outset. Option C. Implement Snort without any prior testing or performance monitoring, assuming its integration will seamlessly enhance existing security measures. Option D. Focus solely on the volume of alerts generated by Snort, aiming to increase the number of detected events as a primary measure of success. The correct answer is A. Conduct a pilot deployment of Snort in a non-critical network segment, monitor performance and alert fidelity, and iteratively refine configurations based on observed data before a wider rollout. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because implementing a new security tool like Snort requires a thorough understanding of its potential impact on network performance and existing security controls before widespread deployment. A hasty implementation without proper assessment can lead to unintended consequences, such as denial of service conditions, false positives overwhelming security teams, or even the circumvention of existing security measures. Careful judgment is required to balance enhanced security with operational stability. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and controlled evaluation, conducting a phased rollout, starting with a pilot deployment in a non-critical segment of the network, allows for real-world testing and validation of Snort's effectiveness and performance impact. This aligns with general cybersecurity best practices and the principle of least privilege, ensuring that any potential disruptions are contained and manageable. Furthermore, it allows for the collection of data to refine Snort's rule sets and configuration, optimizing its security posture and minimizing false positives, which is crucial for efficient incident response and compliance with operational security guidelines. An incorrect approach that involves immediate, full-scale deployment without prior testing is professionally unacceptable. This would violate the principle of due diligence in security implementation. It risks significant network disruption, potentially leading to service outages that could have financial and reputational consequences. From a regulatory perspective, depending on the specific industry and its compliance mandates, e.g., data protection regulations, such a reckless deployment could be seen as a failure to implement adequate security measures, potentially leading to non-compliance penalties. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the number of alerts generated by Snort without considering their relevance or impact, is also professionally unsound. This leads to alert fatigue, where security analysts become desensitized to genuine threats due to an overwhelming volume of noise. This diminishes the effectiveness of the security team and can result in missed critical incidents, a failure to meet incident response objectives, and potential regulatory breaches related to timely threat detection and mitigation. A third incorrect approach, prioritizing the most aggressive rule sets without considering the network environment, is equally problematic. While aggressive rules might seem to offer maximum security, they often generate a high rate of false positives and can inadvertently block legitimate traffic, disrupting business operations. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the specific network's traffic patterns and the need for tailored security solutions, which is a failure in professional security engineering. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured impact assessment. This includes defining clear objectives for the new security tool, identifying potential risks and their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies. A phased deployment, pilot testing, performance monitoring, and continuous refinement of configurations based on observed data are essential steps. Professionals must also consider the regulatory landscape, relevant to their organization to ensure that security implementations meet all compliance requirements. Question 3. The review process indicates that the security team is planning to deploy a new set of Snort intrusion detection rules to enhance network threat visibility. To ensure the effectiveness and stability of the network, what is the most critical step to undertake before implementing these new rules? Option A. Immediately deploy the new Snort rules to all network segments to maximize immediate threat detection capabilities. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate potential effects on network performance, resource utilization, and the integrity of existing security controls. Option C. Prioritize the deployment of rules that generate the most alerts, assuming higher alert volume indicates greater security effectiveness. Option D. Rely solely on the default Snort rule set provided by the vendor without any modifications or prior testing. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate potential effects on network performance, resource utilization, and the integrity of existing security controls. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for network visibility and threat detection with the potential for unintended consequences on network performance and the integrity of sensitive data. The core of the challenge lies in accurately assessing the impact of Snort rule deployment on the overall network infrastructure and its ability to function as intended, while also adhering to the principles of least privilege and data minimization, which are often implicitly or explicitly part of network security regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough and systematic impact assessment before implementing changes. This involves understanding the baseline network performance, identifying critical services, and simulating the potential load and resource consumption of Snort rules. By performing this assessment, security professionals can proactively identify and mitigate risks, ensuring that the deployment of Snort does not degrade network services or compromise data confidentiality, integrity, or availability. This aligns with the general principles of responsible system administration and security deployment, which are foundational to maintaining a secure and functional network environment. While specific regulations for Snort are not typically codified, the principles of due diligence, risk management, and operational integrity are universally expected in professional IT security practice and often underpin broader regulatory compliance frameworks related to data protection and critical infrastructure. An incorrect approach that fails to conduct a proper impact assessment before deploying Snort rules would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Specifically, deploying rules without understanding their potential performance impact could lead to network outages or severe degradation of service. This could violate service-level agreements, SLAs, with internal or external stakeholders, and in regulated industries, could lead to noncompliance with regulations mandating the availability and integrity of systems processing sensitive data. Furthermore, if the impact assessment does not consider the potential for Snort to inadvertently log or alert on sensitive data it is not intended to monitor, it could lead to data privacy violations, contravening data protection laws. Another failure would be to deploy overly broad or aggressive rules without considering their potential to generate excessive false positives, overwhelming security analysts, and diverting resources from genuine threats, which is an inefficient and potentially negligent use of security resources. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a phased approach. First, clearly define the objectives for deploying Snort and the specific threats it is intended to detect. Second, conduct a comprehensive network inventory and performance baseline. Third, develop a detailed plan for rule deployment, including a staged rollout and rollback strategy. Fourth, perform a thorough impact assessment, simulating rule execution under various network conditions. Fifth, implement the rules in a controlled environment or during a maintenance window, with continuous monitoring of network performance and Snort behavior. Finally, establish a regular review and tuning process for the deployed rules to ensure ongoing effectiveness and minimize performance impact. This structured approach ensures that security measures are implemented responsibly and effectively, minimizing risk and maximizing benefit. Question 4. The analysis reveals that a comprehensive Snort rule set deployed on a Cisco network is causing significant performance degradation, leading to increased latency and occasional packet loss. The security team needs to address this issue without compromising the network's security posture or violating regulatory compliance requirements. Which of the following approaches represents the most professional and compliant method for resolving this situation? Option A. Conduct a detailed impact assessment to identify rules contributing most to performance issues, prioritize them based on security criticality and performance impact, and then tune or disable non-essential rules incrementally. Option B. Ignore the performance alerts and continue operating with the current Snort configuration, assuming the degradation is temporary or acceptable. Option C. Deploy a new, more complex Snort rule set that promises better threat detection, hoping it will resolve the performance issues through improved efficiency. Option D. Immediately disable all Snort rules that are identified as contributing to performance degradation to restore network stability. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed impact assessment to identify rules contributing most to performance issues, prioritize them based on security criticality and performance impact, and then tune or disable non-essential rules incrementally. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust intrusion detection with the operational realities of network performance and resource constraints. Implementing Snort rule sets, especially comprehensive ones, can lead to significant processing overhead. The professional challenge lies in determining the most effective and compliant method to mitigate performance degradation without compromising security posture, all while adhering to specific regulatory frameworks relevant to the exam's jurisdiction. This requires a nuanced understanding of Snort's capabilities, network traffic patterns, and the impact of security controls on business operations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven method for tuning Snort rule sets. This begins with an impact assessment that quantifies the performance degradation caused by specific rules or rule categories. Based on this assessment, rules are prioritized for optimization or disabling based on their criticality to security objectives and their impact on network performance. This aligns with best practices for network security management, which emphasize continuous monitoring, tuning, and risk-based decision-making. In a regulatory context, this approach demonstrates due diligence in maintaining security controls while ensuring operational continuity, which is often a requirement for compliance with data protection and network security standards. The focus is on informed adjustments rather than blanket changes, ensuring that security gaps are not inadvertently created. Incorrect approach is analysis. Disabling all Snort rules that cause performance degradation is professionally unacceptable because it creates significant security vulnerabilities. This approach prioritizes operational convenience over security, directly violating the principle of maintaining an adequate security posture. Ethically and regulatorily, this would be considered negligence, as it knowingly exposes the network to threats. Implementing a new, untested, and overly aggressive Snort rule set without prior impact assessment is also professionally unsound. This could lead to widespread network disruption, false positives, and potentially critical security events being masked by the sheer volume of alerts or system instability. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and adherence to change management best practices, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory frameworks. Ignoring performance alerts and continuing with the current Snort configuration, despite known degradation, is a failure to address a critical security operational issue. This inaction can lead to system failures, data loss, or an inability to effectively monitor for threats, all of which have serious regulatory and ethical implications, particularly concerning the protection of sensitive data and the availability of critical services. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured approach to managing Snort performance. This involves 1. Baseline performance measurement. Establish a clear understanding of network performance before implementing or modifying Snort rules. 2. Impact assessment. Systematically identify rules or rule categories that contribute to performance degradation. This should involve monitoring resource utilization, CPU, memory, and network latency. 3. Risk-based prioritization. Evaluate the security criticality of each rule against its performance impact. High-impact, low-criticality rules should be considered for tuning or disabling. Conversely, high-criticality rules, even with high impact, require optimization strategies. 4. Incremental tuning and testing. Make changes incrementally and test their impact on both performance and security effectiveness. This includes validating that disabling or modifying a rule does not open new attack vectors. 5. Documentation and review. Maintain thorough documentation of all changes, the rationale behind them, and their observed effects. Regular reviews of the rule set and its performance are essential. This process ensures that security controls are maintained effectively while minimizing disruption, demonstrating a commitment to both security and operational integrity, which is paramount in any regulated environment. Question 5. Compliance review shows that the organization's Snort deployment is generating an overwhelming volume of alerts and logs, impacting network performance and storage capacity. The security team is tasked with optimizing the Snort configuration to balance security effectiveness with operational efficiency and regulatory adherence. Which of the following approaches best addresses this challenge? Option A. Enable all available Snort rules with maximum logging verbosity to ensure no potential threat is missed, regardless of the impact on network performance and storage. Option B. Randomly select a subset of Snort rules and configure logging levels without a defined methodology to achieve a balance between security and performance. Option C. Implement a risk-based strategy to select and tune Snort rules, prioritizing high severity and relevant threats, and configure detailed logging only for these critical rules, while reducing logging for less critical events. Option D. Disable all logging within the Snort configuration to alleviate network performance issues and reduce storage requirements. Correct answer is C. Implement a risk-based strategy to select and tune Snort rules, prioritizing high severity and relevant threats, and configure detailed logging only for these critical rules, while reducing logging for less critical events. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for detailed intrusion detection with the operational realities of network performance and data storage. The challenge lies in identifying the optimal level of Snort rule verbosity and logging to meet both security requirements and regulatory compliance without overwhelming network resources or creating unmanageable log volumes. The professional must consider the specific threats relevant to the organization, the capabilities of the Snort deployment, and the legal or policy mandates for incident logging and reporting. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a risk-based methodology for rule selection and logging. This means prioritizing rules that detect high-severity threats and are relevant to the organization's specific attack surface and business operations. For these critical rules, detailed logging is enabled to provide sufficient forensic data for incident investigation and compliance reporting. For lower severity or less relevant rules, logging can be reduced to event level or disabled entirely to conserve resources. This approach aligns with best practices for security operations and ensures that valuable resources are focused on the most significant threats, while still maintaining a record of critical security events as often mandated by various compliance frameworks that require evidence of security monitoring and incident response. Incorrect approaches analysis. Enabling all Snort rules with maximum logging verbosity is professionally unacceptable due to its inefficiency and potential for alert fatigue. This approach can lead to a flood of irrelevant or low-priority alerts, making it difficult for security analysts to identify genuine threats. It also consumes excessive network bandwidth and storage, increasing operational costs and potentially hindering the ability to store critical logs for the required retention periods. This indiscriminate approach fails to demonstrate a nuanced understanding of threat intelligence and risk management, which are fundamental to effective security operations. Disabling all logging for Snort to improve network performance is also professionally unacceptable. This action directly contravenes the principles of security monitoring and incident response. Without logs, it becomes impossible to investigate security incidents, identify the root cause of breaches, or provide evidence of compliance with security policies and regulations. This approach creates a significant blind spot in the organization's security posture and leaves it vulnerable to undetected attacks and regulatory penalties for noncompliance. Implementing a purely random selection of Snort rules and logging levels is professionally unsound. Security is not a matter of chance. This approach lacks any strategic direction, fails to consider the organization's specific threat landscape, and does not adhere to any established security framework or regulatory requirement. It is an abdication of professional responsibility to implement security controls without a clear rationale or objective. Professional reasoning. professionals should adopt a phased and iterative approach to Snort rule management and logging. This begins with understanding the organization's critical assets and potential threats. Next, consult relevant compliance requirements to determine minimum logging and retention standards. Then, select and tune Snort rules based on a risk assessment, prioritizing those that address the most probable and impactful threats. For selected rules, configure logging levels to capture sufficient detail for investigation and compliance, while optimizing for performance. Regularly review and update the rule set and logging configurations based on evolving threats, network changes, and audit findings. This systematic process ensures that security investments are effective, efficient, and compliant. Question 6. Market research demonstrates that organizations are increasingly leveraging intrusion detection systems, IDs, like Snort to monitor network traffic for security threats. A cybersecurity analyst is tasked with configuring Snort on a Cisco network to detect and alert on potential data exfiltration attempts. The analyst is considering different approaches to log captured network data for forensic analysis. Which of the following configurations best balances the need for effective threat detection and forensic capability with U.S. federal privacy regulations concerning employee communications? Option A. Configure Snort to capture and log the full content of network packets only for connections involving specific sensitive servers, and anonymize all other network traffic logs. Option B. Configure Snort to log only the headers of network packets, including source and destination IP addresses, ports, and timestamps, and generate alerts based on predefined Snort rules that identify suspicious traffic patterns indicative of data exfiltration. Option C. Configure Snort to log only the metadata of network connections, such as connection duration and data volume, and disable payload inspection to avoid capturing any potentially sensitive information. Option D. Configure Snort to capture and log the full content of all network packets, including the payload, for every connection, and store these logs indefinitely for comprehensive forensic analysis. Correct answer is B. Configure Snort to log only the headers of network packets, including source and destination IP addresses, ports, and timestamps, and generate alerts based on predefined Snort rules that identify suspicious traffic patterns indicative of data exfiltration. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between network security monitoring and the privacy expectations of users within a corporate environment. Organizations are legally obligated to protect their networks from threats, which often necessitates deep packet inspection. However, this monitoring must be balanced against regulations and ethical considerations regarding employee privacy. The challenge lies in implementing effective security measures without overstepping legal boundaries or eroding trust. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is U.S. federal law, which includes regulations like the Electronic Communications Privacy Act (ECPA) and various state-level privacy laws, as well as general principles of data protection and employee monitoring. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing Snort rules that focus on detecting malicious traffic patterns and policy violations, rather than indiscriminately logging all user data. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and data minimization, which are fundamental to U.S. data privacy regulations. By configuring Snort to alert on specific threat indicators, e.g., known malware signatures, unauthorized access attempts, exfiltration patterns, and anonymizing or aggregating non-essential user data in logs, the organization adheres to the spirit and letter of laws like ECPA, which protect electronic communications from unauthorized interception. This approach prioritizes security objectives while respecting employee privacy by limiting the collection and retention of personally identifiable information, PI, to what is strictly necessary for security incident response. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and a proactive stance on privacy by design. Incorrect approaches analysis. Logging all network traffic, including the full content of user communication, without a specific security justification or clear policy notification, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This broad data collection could violate ECPA by constituting unauthorized interception of electronic communications. It also fails to adhere to data minimization principles, increasing the risk of PII exposure and potential liability under various state privacy laws. Furthermore, such an approach erodes employee trust and could lead to legal challenges based on a reasonable expectation of privacy. Implementing Snort rules that capture and log sensitive personal information, e.g., financial details, health information, personal correspondence, even if intended for security analysis, without explicit consent or a compelling legal basis, is also professionally unacceptable. This goes beyond necessary security monitoring and directly infringes on privacy rights. It creates a high risk of data breaches involving sensitive PII, leading to severe regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Disabling Snort's logging capabilities entirely to avoid any privacy concerns would be a failure to meet the organization's security obligations. While it avoids privacy risks, it leaves the network vulnerable to threats, potentially violating compliance requirements for network security and incident detection. This approach prioritizes one aspect of compliance privacy at the expense of another critical one, security, demonstrating poor risk management. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach that balances security needs with legal and ethical obligations. This involves understanding the specific regulatory landscape, in this case, U.S. federal and relevant state laws, clearly defining security policies, and configuring monitoring tools like Snort to align with these policies. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying applicable regulations and legal requirements related to network monitoring and data privacy. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment to understand potential threats and vulnerabilities. 3. Developing clear, documented policies for network monitoring and data handling, ensuring transparency with employees. 4. Configuring security tools to collect only the data necessary for identified security objectives, employing anonymization or aggregation where appropriate. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating configurations and policies to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory changes. 6. Establishing clear incident response procedures that include protocols for handling sensitive data discovered during investigations. Question 7. During the evaluation of a Cisco network security posture using open-source Snort, a security analyst is tasked with configuring the intrusion detection system, IDs, to effectively monitor for malicious traffic. The organization operates under U.S. federal regulations that emphasize data privacy and security. The analyst needs to determine the most appropriate logging configuration for Snort to balance robust threat detection with compliance with these regulations. Option A. Configure Snort to log only essential metadata such as source and destination IP addresses, ports, and protocol types, while excluding packet payloads. Option B. Configure Snort to log all packet payloads but encrypt them to ensure data privacy. Option C. Configure Snort to log all packet payloads for comprehensive forensic analysis in case of a security incident. Option D. Configure Snort to disable all logging to avoid any potential privacy concerns related to captured data. The correct answer is C. Configure Snort to log all packet payloads for comprehensive forensic analysis in case of a security incident. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between network security monitoring and the potential for privacy intrusion. Organizations are tasked with detecting and responding to threats using tools like Snort, but must do so within the bounds of applicable regulations. The challenge lies in configuring Snort to effectively identify malicious activity without indiscriminately collecting sensitive personal data, which could lead to legal repercussions and erosion of trust. Careful judgment is required to balance security imperatives with privacy rights. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves configuring Snort to log only the necessary metadata for threat detection and incident response, such as IP addresses, ports, and protocol information, while avoiding the capture of packet payloads that contain sensitive personal information. This aligns with the principle of data minimization, a cornerstone of privacy regulations. By focusing on essential security indicators, the organization adheres to the spirit and letter of data protection laws, ensuring that data collection is proportionate to the legitimate security objective. This approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and privacy by design. Incorrect approaches analysis. Logging all packet payloads indiscriminately represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach violates the principle of data minimization by collecting far more information than is necessary for security purposes. It exposes the organization to substantial legal risks under data protection laws, which mandate that personal data be processed lawfully, fairly, and transparently, and that only data necessary for a specific purpose be collected. Ethically, it constitutes an unwarranted invasion of privacy for individuals whose data might be incidentally captured. Configuring Snort to disable all logging, even for critical security events, is also professionally unacceptable. While it avoids privacy risks, it cripples the organization's ability to detect, investigate, and respond to security incidents. This failure to implement adequate security measures can lead to significant business disruption, financial losses, and reputational damage, potentially violating regulatory requirements for maintaining a secure network environment. Failing to regularly review and update Snort's rule sets and logging configuration, even if initially set to minimize data, is another failure. The threat landscape evolves, and outdated configurations may inadvertently start logging sensitive data as new rules are deployed or existing ones are modified without proper oversight. This lack of ongoing diligence can lead to unintentional privacy breaches and security vulnerabilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach, prioritizing security needs while rigorously adhering to privacy principles. This involves understanding the specific data protection regulations applicable to the organization's jurisdiction. The decision-making process should include 1. Threat modeling. Identify potential threats and the data required to detect them. 2. Data minimization assessment. Determine the minimum data necessary for effective threat detection and incident response. 3. Regulatory compliance check. Verify that the chosen logging configuration aligns with all relevant data protection laws. 4. Configuration implementation. Deploy Snort with logging settings that capture only essential security metadata. 5. Ongoing monitoring and auditing. Regularly review Snort logs and configurations to ensure continued compliance and effectiveness. 6. Incident response planning. Develop clear procedures for handling security incidents, including data breach protocols. Question 8. Operational review demonstrates that the current Snort deployment is generating an overwhelming volume of alerts, making it difficult for the security team to identify genuine threats. The organization operates under U.S. federal regulations that mandate the protection of sensitive customer data. Which of the following approaches best balances effective threat detection with regulatory compliance and operational efficiency? Option A. Implement a phased approach to rule set tuning, prioritizing rules that address the most critical threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the organization's industry and compliance obligations, while leveraging Snort's preprocessors and suppression features to manage alert volume. Option B. Disable all intrusion detection rules to eliminate alert fatigue and allow the security team to focus on other operational tasks, assuming that other security controls will mitigate most threats. Option C. Deploy a comprehensive, out-of-the-box rule set from a reputable vendor to ensure maximum coverage against known threats, accepting a higher alert volume as a necessary trade-off for enhanced security. Option D. Focus exclusively on signature-based detection rules, disregarding Snort's preprocessor capabilities and anomaly detection features, to simplify rule management and reduce the complexity of alert analysis. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased approach to rule set tuning, prioritizing rules that address the most critical threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the organization's industry and compliance obligations, while leveraging Snort's preprocessors and suppression features to manage alert volume. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security operations, balancing the need for detailed network visibility and threat detection with the potential for privacy implications and the risk of overwhelming security analysts with excessive data. The professional challenge lies in configuring Snort rule sets effectively to capture relevant malicious activity without generating an unmanageable volume of alerts or inadvertently logging sensitive user data, which could lead to regulatory noncompliance and operational inefficiency. Careful judgment is required to select rules that are both effective and proportionate. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased and targeted implementation of Snort rules, prioritizing rule sets that directly address known threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the organization's specific threat landscape and compliance obligations. This includes leveraging Snort's preprocessor capabilities to normalize and analyze traffic before rule matching, and employing thresholding and suppression mechanisms to reduce alert fatigue. Furthermore, A critical aspect is the regular review and tuning of the rule set based on observed network traffic and incident response data. This methodology aligns with best practices for security operations and regulatory frameworks that mandate a risk-based approach to cybersecurity, ensuring that security investments are focused on the most critical threats while respecting privacy considerations. For example, in the U.S., regulations like HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, require organizations to protect sensitive data, and an overly broad or poorly configured Snort deployment could inadvertently violate these by logging excessive personal or financial information. A targeted approach ensures that only relevant security events are logged and analyzed, minimizing privacy risks. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a comprehensive, out-of-the-box rule set without prior analysis or tuning is professionally unacceptable due to the high probability of generating a massive volume of false positives. This alert fatigue can lead to missed critical security events, undermining the effectiveness of the security program. From a regulatory standpoint, this approach could lead to non-compliance if the excessive logging of benign traffic consumes resources that should be dedicated to protecting sensitive data, or if it inadvertently captures personally identifiable information, PI, without proper justification or consent, violating privacy regulations. Disabling all intrusion detection rules to reduce alert volume is also professionally unacceptable. This approach effectively negates the purpose of deploying Snort, leaving the network vulnerable to known threats. It represents a failure to implement basic security controls and a disregard for the organization's responsibility to protect its assets and data, which is a fundamental requirement under most cybersecurity regulations. Focusing solely on signature-based detection and ignoring Snort's preprocessor capabilities and anomaly detection features is a suboptimal approach. While signature-based detection is crucial, it is reactive. Preprocessors enhance the ability to detect more sophisticated attacks, including zero-day threats or polymorphic malware, by analyzing traffic patterns and anomalies. Relying only on signatures can lead to missed threats, increasing the organization's risk profile and potentially violating regulatory expectations. For a robust defense-in-depth strategy, professional reasoning, professionals should adopt a risk-based and iterative approach to Snort rule management. This involves 1. Threat assessment, understanding the organization's specific threat landscape and compliance requirements. 2. Baseline analysis, monitoring network traffic to establish normal behavior and identify potential areas of concern. 3. Phased deployment, implementing rule sets incrementally, starting with high-priority threat categories. 4. Tuning and optimization, regularly reviewing alert logs, identifying false positives and negatives, and adjusting rules accordingly. 5. Leveraging advanced features, utilizing preprocessors, anomaly detection, and custom rule development to enhance detection capabilities. 6. Documentation and auditing, maintaining clear records of rule configurations, tuning decisions, and their impact on security posture and compliance. This systematic process ensures that Snort is configured to provide maximum security benefit while minimizing operational overhead and regulatory risk. Question 9. Governance review demonstrates that a critical new network service was deployed rapidly to meet market demand. While the service is operational, there is a concern that its unique traffic patterns and potential attack vectors may not be adequately covered by the current Snort intrusion detection system, IDs, rule set. The security team is debating the best course of action to ensure the new service is properly protected without causing significant delays to ongoing operations. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation from a professional security standpoint? Option A. Prioritize the immediate deployment of the new service and plan to review and tune Snort rules for this service only if an incident is detected. Option B. Immediately update the Snort rule set with the latest community-provided rules and deploy the new service with these updated rules, deferring any specific tuning until after the service is fully established. Option C. Temporarily disable Snort monitoring for the new service's traffic to ensure its stability and performance during the initial deployment phase, with a plan to re-enable monitoring later. Option D. Conduct a thorough analysis of the new service's traffic and potential threats, develop and test custom Snort rules specifically for this service, and integrate these validated rules into the IDS before the service is fully operational. The correct answer is B. Immediately update the Snort rule set with the latest community-provided rules and deploy the new service with these updated rules, deferring any specific tuning until after the service is fully established. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between operational efficiency and robust security posture. The rapid deployment of new network services, while crucial for business agility, can introduce vulnerabilities if not adequately assessed and secured. The reliance on Snort for intrusion detection, a powerful open-source tool, necessitates a deep understanding of its configuration, rule management, and integration within the broader security framework. The challenge lies in balancing the speed of deployment with the meticulous process of ensuring Snort's effectiveness and compliance with established security policies and potential regulatory mandates. Though specific regulations are not detailed here, the principle of due diligence applies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a proactive and integrated security lifecycle. By incorporating Snort rule validation and tuning into the pre-deployment phase of new network services, the organization ensures that potential threats are identified and mitigated before they can impact the production environment. This aligns with best practices in secure network design and operation, where security is not an afterthought but a fundamental consideration from inception. This approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to maintaining a strong security posture, which is implicitly expected in any professional IT security role, regardless of specific regulatory frameworks. It prioritizes risk reduction and operational stability. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves deploying new services without any specific Snort rule validation, relying solely on default or previously established rules. This is professionally unacceptable because it assumes that existing rules are comprehensive enough to cover all potential threats introduced by new services, which is rarely the case. This oversight can lead to undetected intrusions and security breaches, failing to meet the implicit duty of care to protect network assets. Another incorrect approach is to deploy new services and then attempt to tune Snort rules reactively after an incident has occurred. This is a failure of proactive security management. It demonstrates a reactive rather than a preventative mindset, which is a significant professional failing. Relying on post-incident analysis to identify security gaps is inefficient, costly, and exposes the organization to unnecessary risk. A third incorrect approach is to disable or bypass Snort for new service deployments to meet aggressive timelines. This is a direct contravention of security policy and professional responsibility. It prioritizes speed over security, creating known vulnerabilities and exposing the network to significant risk. This action would likely be considered a severe breach of professional conduct and could have serious organizational consequences. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to network security. When introducing new services, a thorough risk assessment should be conducted, identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities. This assessment should directly inform the configuration and tuning of security tools like Snort. The decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the business requirements for the new service. 2. Identifying potential security risks associated with the service. 3. Determining how Snort can be leveraged to detect and prevent these risks. 4. Implementing and validating Snort configurations and rules before the service goes live. 5. Establishing a continuous monitoring and tuning process for Snort rules. This structured approach ensures that security is integrated throughout the service lifecycle, minimizing risk and maximizing the effectiveness of security investments. Question 10. Regulatory review indicates that a U.S.-based financial services firm is implementing open-source Snort for network intrusion detection. The primary objective is to monitor for malicious activity targeting customer accounts and internal financial systems. Given the sensitive nature of financial data and the requirements of U.S. federal regulations such as the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, which of the following Snort configuration and logging strategies best balances effective security monitoring with regulatory compliance and data privacy? Option A. Configure Snort to capture and log the full content of every network packet that traverses the monitored segments, regardless of whether it triggers an alert. Store these full packet captures indefinitely on a publicly accessible server for easy retrieval by all IT staff. Option B. Configure Snort to log detailed metadata about network connections, including source/destination IP addresses, ports, and timestamps, along with alerts triggered by specific intrusion signatures. Implement strict role-based access controls for log access, ensuring only authorized security personnel can review the logs. Option C. Configure Snort to log all network traffic metadata and alerts to a central syslog server. Ensure the syslog server is unencrypted and accessible to all employees within the organization for transparency. Option D. Configure Snort to log only the IP addresses of devices that generate network traffic, without any information about the traffic content or destination. Disable all alert logging to avoid unnecessary data collection. The correct answer is B. Configure Snort to log detailed metadata about network connections, including source/destination IP addresses, ports, and timestamps, along with alerts triggered by specific intrusion signatures. Implement strict role-based access controls for log access, ensuring only authorized security personnel can review the logs. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between network security monitoring and data privacy regulations, specifically within the context of U.S. federal law as it pertains to network security and data handling. The organization is tasked with implementing Snort for intrusion detection, which necessitates the analysis of network traffic. However, this analysis must be conducted in a manner that respects the privacy rights of individuals whose data might traverse the network. The challenge lies in balancing the need for robust security with legal obligations to protect sensitive information, such as personally identifiable information, PI. The correct approach involves a carefully designed Snort deployment that prioritizes data minimization and anonymization where possible, while still achieving effective threat detection. This aligns with principles of privacy by design and by default, which are implicitly supported by U.S. federal regulations like the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, for health data, and the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, for children's data, and more broadly by the Federal Trade Commission's, FTC, guidance on data security and privacy. Specifically, configuring Snort to log only necessary metadata and alert information, rather than full packet captures of all traffic, and implementing strict access controls to the logs themselves, represents best professional practice. This minimizes the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive data and reduces the potential for privacy violations, thereby adhering to the spirit and letter of relevant U.S. privacy laws. An incorrect approach would be to configure Snort to log all packet data indiscriminately without considering the privacy implications. This would likely violate U.S. federal privacy regulations by collecting and storing excessive amounts of potentially sensitive personal information without a clear, legitimate business need or proper consent mechanisms. For instance, capturing full packet data could inadvertently log financial transaction details, health information, or private communications, exposing the organization to significant legal liability under laws like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, for financial data or HIPAA. Another incorrect approach would be to neglect access controls for the Snort logs, allowing unrestricted access to potentially sensitive captured data. This failure to implement adequate security measures for collected data would be a direct violation of data security mandates found in various U.S. federal laws, such as those enforced by the FTC, which require reasonable security practices to protect consumer data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the applicable U.S. federal regulatory landscape concerning data privacy and security. This involves identifying what types of data are likely to traverse the network and which specific regulations apply to that data. Subsequently, security professionals must engage in a risk assessment to determine the potential privacy implications of different Snort deployment and logging configurations. The principle of least privilege should guide the configuration, ensuring that only the minimum necessary data is logged and that access to that data is strictly controlled. Regular audits and reviews of the Snort configuration and log access policies are also crucial to maintain compliance and adapt to evolving threats and regulations. Question 11. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in Snort CPU utilization and a slight rise in network latency following the deployment of a new set of intrusion detection rules. The security team is concerned about potential performance degradation impacting critical business applications. Option A. Increase the Snort packet capture buffer size to accommodate the increased traffic volume, assuming this will resolve the performance issues. Option B. Immediately disable all newly deployed rules to restore network performance to previous levels, and postpone further rule analysis until a later date. Option C. Prioritize tuning rules that generate the most alerts or consume the highest processing resources, focusing on those with a low confidence score or known false positive rates, while carefully re-evaluating the necessity of high-risk, high-alert rules. Option D. Enable all available Snort rules to ensure maximum detection coverage, and plan for hardware upgrades to accommodate the increased load. The correct answer is C. Prioritize tuning rules that generate the most alerts or consume the highest processing resources, focusing on those with a low confidence score or known false positive rates, while carefully re-evaluating the necessity of high-risk, high-alert rules. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security operations, balancing the need for detailed network visibility with the potential for performance degradation caused by extensive monitoring. The core professional challenge lies in making informed decisions about Snort rule tuning that optimize security posture without negatively impacting network availability, a critical factor in maintaining business operations and adhering to service-level agreements. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven method for rule optimization. This aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing security effectiveness while minimizing operational impact. Specifically, it demonstrates a commitment to responsible resource management and proactive threat mitigation. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach ensures that the network remains functional and secure, thereby upholding obligations to protect sensitive data and maintain service continuity, which are often implicitly or explicitly covered by data protection regulations and industry standards. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on disabling rules without proper analysis is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to significant security gaps, leaving the network vulnerable to threats that the disabled rules were intended to detect. Ethically, this constitutes negligence in fulfilling security responsibilities. From a regulatory perspective, failing to adequately monitor for and prevent security incidents can result in breaches that violate data privacy laws, leading to fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves blindly enabling all available rules, is equally problematic. While seemingly comprehensive, this often overwhelms the Snort system, leading to high CPU utilization, packet drops, and increased latency. This directly impacts network performance and availability, potentially violating service-level agreements and regulatory requirements for network uptime. It also creates a noise problem, making it harder to identify genuine threats amidst a flood of false positives, thus undermining the very purpose of the security system. The professional decision-making process should involve a continuous cycle of monitoring, analysis, and tuning. This includes understanding the network's baseline performance, identifying rules that generate excessive alerts or consume significant resources, and then making targeted adjustments based on risk assessment and operational impact. Professionals must consult documentation, community best practices, and internal security policies to guide their decisions, ensuring that all actions are justifiable and contribute to an overall robust security posture. Question 12. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to deploying intrusion detection systems like Snort within a Cisco network environment, particularly concerning the handling of potentially sensitive data. Considering U.S. federal regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and network security, which of the following strategies best balances the need for robust threat detection with the imperative to protect personally identifiable information, PI, and other sensitive data? Option A. Configure Snort to log the full packet payload for all traffic that matches any intrusion detection rule, regardless of whether the traffic contains PII or sensitive data, to ensure no malicious activity is missed. Option B. Focus exclusively on signature-based detection rules and ignore the potential for sensitive data to be present within the traffic that triggers these rules, assuming that the signatures themselves are sufficient to prevent data exposure. Option C. Implement Snort rules that are narrowly tailored to detect specific malicious patterns, and configure logging to capture only the metadata and event details of security alerts, avoiding the logging of full packet payloads unless explicitly required for a confirmed incident and authorized under policy. Option D. Disable all logging features within Snort to completely eliminate the risk of inadvertently capturing and storing PII or sensitive data, relying solely on real-time alerts for immediate threat notification. The correct answer is C. Implement Snort rules that are narrowly tailored to detect specific malicious patterns, and configure logging to capture only the metadata and event details of security alerts, avoiding the logging of full packet payloads unless explicitly required for a confirmed incident and authorized under policy. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between network security monitoring and data privacy regulations. Organizations deploying Snort for intrusion detection must balance the need to inspect network traffic for malicious activity with the legal and ethical obligations to protect sensitive user data. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is U.S. federal regulations, particularly those pertaining to data privacy and network security. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes compliance with relevant U.S. federal regulations, such as the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, if health data is involved, or the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, if children's data is present, and general principles of data minimization and lawful interception. It involves a proactive, risk-based strategy that identifies sensitive data, implements appropriate anonymization or pseudonymization techniques where feasible, and ensures that Snort's logging and alerting mechanisms are configured to avoid unnecessary collection or retention of personally identifiable information, PI. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and data minimization, which are foundational to robust data protection frameworks. Incorrect approach that involves broadly logging all intercepted traffic without regard for PII or sensitive data constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to violations of privacy laws, resulting in substantial fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Specifically, it fails to adhere to data minimization principles, which mandate collecting only the data necessary for a specific, legitimate purpose. Furthermore, it could be construed as an unlawful interception of communications if not properly authorized and limited. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on signature-based detection without considering the content of the traffic, is also problematic. Signatures are crucial for identifying known threats. They do not inherently protect against the incidental capture of sensitive data within legitimate traffic that might trigger a rule. This oversight can still lead to the logging and potential exposure of PII. A third incorrect approach, disabling logging altogether to avoid privacy concerns, is professionally unacceptable as it cripples the security monitoring capabilities of Snort. This directly undermines the purpose of deploying the tool for network security, leaving the organization vulnerable to undetected threats and failing to meet its duty of care in securing its network infrastructure. It represents a failure to balance security needs with privacy obligations, opting for a complete abdication of security monitoring rather than a compliant implementation. The professional reasoning process for such situations involves a multifaceted approach. 1. Identify applicable U.S. federal regulations and any relevant state-level privacy laws. 2. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to understand the types of data traversing the network and the potential impact of its compromise or incidental collection. 3. Define clear policies for data handling, logging, and retention, aligning with legal requirements and best practices like data minimization. 4. Figure Snort rules and logging mechanisms to be as granular as possible, focusing on capturing only relevant security event data and avoiding the logging of PII unless absolutely necessary and legally permissible. 5. Implement technical controls such as anonymization or pseudonymization where appropriate and feasible. 6. Regularly review and audit Snort configurations and logs to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. 7. Seek legal counsel to ensure all configurations and policies meet regulatory standards. Question 13. Implementation of Snort intrusion detection rules on a Cisco network requires careful consideration of rule efficacy and operational impact. Given the need to protect sensitive customer data and comply with U.S. federal cybersecurity guidelines, which of the following approaches to Snort rule management best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory expectations? Option A. A systematic process of rule evaluation, prioritization based on threat intelligence and risk assessment, and continuous tuning to minimize false positives while maximizing detection of critical threats. Option B. enabling all available Snort community rule sets without modification to ensure maximum possible detection coverage, regardless of alert volume. Option C, relying solely on Snort's default rule configuration and only enabling new rules when explicitly mandated by vendor updates. Option D, disabling any Snort rule that generates more than 5 alerts per day to reduce the burden on security analysts, without further investigation into the nature of the alerts. The correct answer is a systematic process of rule evaluation, prioritization based on threat intelligence and risk assessment, and continuous tuning to minimize false positives while maximizing detection of critical threats. Explanation: the scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for granular intrusion detection with the operational overhead and potential for false positives. Implementing Snort rules requires a deep understanding of network traffic patterns, threat landscapes, and the specific regulatory environment governing data protection and network security. In the context of the 500-280 exam, which focuses on Cisco networks and open-source Snort, the primary regulatory framework to consider would be U.S. federal regulations related to cybersecurity and data privacy, such as NIST guidelines and potentially aspects of HIPAA or PCI DSS, if the network handles sensitive data. The correct approach involves a systematic and risk-based methodology for rule tuning. This means prioritizing rules that address the most critical threats and are most likely to generate actionable alerts, while carefully evaluating and disabling or modifying rules that produce excessive false positives or are irrelevant to the organization's specific threat profile. This approach aligns with best practices for efficient security operations and compliance, ensuring that security personnel can focus on genuine threats without being overwhelmed by noise. It also demonstrates due diligence in maintaining a secure network posture, a key requirement under various cybersecurity regulations. An incorrect approach would be to blindly enable all available Snort rules without proper evaluation. This is professionally challenging because it leads to alert fatigue, where security analysts become desensitized to alerts, potentially missing critical security events. Ethically and regulatorily, this failure can be seen as negligence. For instance, if a critical breach occurs and it can be demonstrated that the security system was not optimally configured due to a lack of rule tuning, it could lead to significant legal and financial repercussions. Regulations often imply a requirement for reasonable security measures, and an unmanaged, noisy IDS/IPS system falls short of this standard. Another incorrect approach is to disable rules solely based on the volume of alerts without understanding the underlying threat or the potential impact of a successful exploit. This can lead to significant security gaps. If a disabled rule was designed to detect a specific, albeit rare, attack vector that is critical to the organization's assets, disabling it without a thorough risk assessment is a failure of professional responsibility and could violate regulatory requirements for comprehensive security monitoring. The professional decision-making process should involve a continuous cycle of rule deployment, monitoring, analysis, and tuning. This starts with understanding the organization's assets, the threats it faces, and the relevant regulatory compliance obligations. Security teams should then select and deploy Snort rules based on this understanding, prioritizing high-fidelity rules. Following deployment, continuous monitoring of alert logs is crucial. Alerts should be analyzed to identify false positives and true positives. False positives should be investigated to understand their root cause and either tuned out, e.g., by modifying thresholds, adding exceptions, or disabled if deemed irrelevant after careful consideration. True positives must be investigated and responded to according to established incident response procedures. This iterative process ensures that the Snort deployment remains effective, efficient, and compliant with relevant regulations. Question 14. Process analysis reveals that a network security team is tasked with optimizing the deployment of Snort intrusion detection rules within a U.S.-based financial institution. The team is considering several approaches to balance threat detection efficacy with network performance and alert manageability. Which of the following approaches best aligns with U.S. cybersecurity, best practices, and regulatory expectations for such an organization? Option A. Implement only a minimal set of Snort rules that target the most common and easily identifiable threats, prioritizing low alert volume over comprehensive vulnerability coverage. Option B. Immediately enable all available Snort rules to ensure maximum possible detection coverage, without initial consideration for network performance impact or alert volume. Option C. Disable any Snort rules that generate a high volume of alerts, irrespective of the potential severity or type of threat they are designed to detect, to reduce the burden on security analysts. Option D. Enable a comprehensive set of Snort rules, starting with a baseline of critical threat detection, and gradually enabling additional rules based on ongoing risk assessments, performance monitoring, and the specific threat intelligence relevant to the financial sector. The correct answer is D. Enable a comprehensive set of Snort rules, starting with a baseline of critical threat detection, and gradually enabling additional rules based on ongoing risk assessments, performance monitoring, and the specific threat intelligence relevant to the financial sector. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for detailed network visibility and intrusion detection with the potential for performance degradation and the complexities of managing large volumes of log data. The professional must consider not only the technical efficacy of different Snort rule configurations, but also their impact on network operations and compliance with relevant U.S. cybersecurity regulations, such as those mandated by NIST for federal agencies or industry-specific requirements like PCI DSS for payment card data. The challenge lies in selecting a rule set that provides adequate protection without overwhelming network resources or generating unmanageable alert fatigue, which can lead to missed critical events. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased, risk-based implementation of Snort rules, prioritizing critical threats and known vulnerabilities relevant to the organization's assets and data. This aligns with best practices outlined in U.S. cybersecurity frameworks, which emphasize a layered security strategy and continuous monitoring. By starting with a baseline of essential rules and gradually enabling more specific or performance-intensive rules based on risk assessment and observed network traffic, security professionals can maintain network stability while enhancing threat detection. This methodical approach ensures that resources are allocated effectively and that alerts are actionable, reducing the likelihood of alert fatigue and improving incident response times. It also supports compliance by demonstrating a proactive and risk-informed security posture. Incorrect approach is analysis. Enabling all available Snort rules without prior analysis or risk assessment is a regulatory and ethical failure. This approach can lead to significant network performance issues, potentially violating service-level agreements or impacting critical business operations. From a regulatory standpoint, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence in managing security resources and could be seen as a failure to implement security controls in a manner that is proportionate to the risks faced, as often implied by NIST guidelines. Furthermore, the sheer volume of alerts generated would likely overwhelm security analysts, leading to missed critical events and a failure to meet incident detection and response obligations. Implementing only a minimal set of Snort rules that focus solely on easily detectable, low-impact threats, while ignoring more complex or stealthy attack vectors, is also professionally unacceptable. This approach creates significant security gaps and leaves the network vulnerable to sophisticated attacks. It fails to meet the reasonable expectation of due care and diligence in protecting sensitive data and network infrastructure, which is a cornerstone of U.S. cybersecurity regulations. Such a limited scope of detection could result in undetected breaches, leading to severe financial and reputational damage, and potential regulatory penalties for failing to implement adequate security measures. Disabling Snort rules that generate a high volume of alerts, regardless of their potential impact, is another critical failure. This is a direct attempt to reduce alert fatigue by ignoring potential threats, which is contrary to the purpose of a security monitoring system. U.S. regulations and frameworks consistently emphasize the importance of comprehensive monitoring and timely incident detection. Ignoring alerts, even if numerous, constitutes a failure to monitor effectively and can lead to undetected security incidents, violating the principles of due diligence and potentially leading to noncompliance with data breach notification laws or other security mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based methodology for Snort rule deployment. This involves 1. Understanding the organization's critical assets and data. 2. Identifying relevant threat landscapes and vulnerabilities. 3. selecting and testing Snort rules based on their ability to detect these threats and vulnerabilities. 4. Prioritizing rule sets based on potential impact and performance overhead. 5. Implementing rules in a phased manner, starting with a baseline and gradually expanding based on monitoring and analysis. 6. Regularly reviewing and tuning Snort rules to adapt to evolving threats and network changes. 7. Establishing clear alert management procedures to ensure timely and effective response. This structured approach ensures that security controls are both effective and sustainable, meeting both technical requirements and regulatory expectations for a robust cybersecurity posture. Question 15. Stakeholder feedback indicates a need to enhance network intrusion detection capabilities within a US-based organization using open-source Snort. The primary concern is to ensure that the implementation of Snort for threat detection and prevention adheres strictly to US federal regulations concerning electronic communications privacy and data handling, while still providing robust security monitoring. Which of the following approaches best balances these requirements? Option A. Implement Snort with rules focused on known malicious signatures and anomalous behavior, configuring logging to capture only metadata and alert information related to detected threats, and establish a clear data retention policy aligned with regulatory requirements. Option B. Configure Snort to log detailed packet payloads for all network traffic, enabling comprehensive forensic analysis, and retain these logs for an extended period to ensure thorough historical review. Option C. Deploy Snort in a passive monitoring mode, capturing all network traffic and storing raw packet captures for an indefinite period, relying on manual review for threat identification. Option D. Utilize Snort primarily for blocking known malicious IP addresses and ports, without extensive logging of traffic content, assuming that blocking is sufficient for compliance. The correct answer is B. Configure Snort to log detailed packet payloads for all network traffic, enabling comprehensive forensic analysis, and retain these logs for an extended period to ensure thorough historical review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between network security monitoring and the privacy expectations of users within a regulated environment. The need to detect and respond to threats using Snort, a powerful intrusion detection system, must be balanced against legal and ethical obligations concerning data privacy. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is U.S. federal regulations, particularly those impacting network security and data handling. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes compliance with U.S. federal regulations, such as the Electronic Communications Privacy Act (ECPA), and potentially sector-specific regulations like HIPAA if health data is involved, by implementing Snort in a manner that minimizes unnecessary collection of personally identifiable information (PI), while still achieving effective threat detection. This involves careful configuration of Snort rules and logging to focus on malicious patterns rather than indiscriminately capturing all network traffic content. Ethical considerations also dictate a responsible approach to data collection, ensuring transparency and necessity. An incorrect approach that involves broadly logging all packet payloads without specific justification or anonymization fails to adhere to U.S. federal privacy laws. The ECPA, for instance, places restrictions on the interception and disclosure of electronic communications. Indiscriminate logging of packet content could be construed as such an interception without proper legal basis or user consent, leading to significant legal penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which relies solely on Snort's default configurations without any privacy-aware tuning, risks overcollection of sensitive data, again violating privacy principles and potentially specific regulatory mandates. Furthermore, failing to document the rationale for data collection and retention policies, even if seemingly compliant, can be a regulatory failure, as it hinders auditability and accountability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of applicable U.S. federal regulations governing data privacy and network monitoring. This involves identifying the specific data types being handled and the associated legal requirements. Next, they should assess the capabilities of Snort and its configuration options to determine how to achieve security objectives while minimizing privacy intrusion. This includes rule tuning, selective logging, and considering anonymization or pseudonymization techniques where feasible. Documentation of the security and privacy rationale, along with the implemented controls, is crucial for demonstrating compliance and facilitating future reviews. Regular audits and updates to configurations based on evolving threats and regulatory guidance are also essential components of professional practice. Question 16. The monitoring system demonstrates a high volume of Snort alerts, ranging from potential policy violations to suspected intrusion attempts. A junior analyst proposes immediately blocking all traffic associated with any alert that indicates a potential security threat, regardless of its severity, or corroborating evidence from other security tools. A senior analyst suggests a more nuanced approach, prioritizing alerts based on severity, correlating them with other log sources, and investigating a sample of lower severity alerts to identify patterns before implementing any blocking actions. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for network security monitoring and incident response within a U.S. regulatory framework? Option A. Prioritize alerts by severity, correlate them with other log sources, and investigate a sample of lower severity alerts to identify patterns before implementing blocking actions, ensuring a balanced approach to security and operational continuity. Option B. Implement immediate blocking for all alerts indicating potential security threats to ensure maximum protection, as per the principle of erring on the side of caution. Option C. Ignore all low-severity alerts to focus resources on high-priority threats, as most low-severity alerts are false positives and do not warrant investigation. Option D. Block traffic only for alerts that have been manually verified by multiple security personnel, even if it means a significant delay in responding to genuine threats. Correct answer is B. Implement immediate blocking for all alerts indicating potential security threats to ensure maximum protection, as per the principle of erring on the side of caution. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for comprehensive threat detection with the operational realities of managing a security information and event management system, and adhering to regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in accurately interpreting Snort rule alerts in the context of potential false positives, and ensuring that the response aligns with established security policies and any applicable U.S. federal regulations governing network security monitoring and incident response. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, evidence-based investigation of alerts before taking action. This aligns with the principles of due diligence and responsible incident handling, which are implicitly required by U.S. cybersecurity frameworks and best practices. By correlating Snort alerts with other log sources and contextualizing them within the network environment, security analysts can accurately identify genuine threats, minimize disruption from false positives, and ensure that resources are allocated effectively. This methodical approach is crucial for maintaining the integrity of the security posture and for demonstrating compliance with potential audit requirements that necessitate accurate and timely threat identification. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate blocking based on Snort alerts without further validation is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to the blocking of legitimate network traffic, causing operational disruptions and potentially violating service-level agreements or business continuity plans. Ethically, it represents a failure to exercise due diligence and a disregard for the potential negative impact on the organization. From a regulatory perspective, such a reactive and unverified response could be seen as a failure to implement a robust and effective security monitoring program, potentially contravening requirements for maintaining a secure network environment. Another incorrect approach, which involves ignoring alerts that appear to be low severity without investigation, is also professionally flawed. While prioritizing high-severity alerts is important, even low-severity alerts can be indicators of reconnaissance, policy violations, or components of a larger, more sophisticated attack. Failing to investigate these could lead to missed threats that escalate over time. This represents a failure to maintain a proactive security stance and could be interpreted as negligence in a regulatory context that expects comprehensive monitoring and analysis. The professional decision-making process should involve a tiered approach to alert analysis. First, understand the alert's context. What rule triggered it? What is the source and destination IP? And what is the severity? Second, correlate the alert with other relevant logs from firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, and endpoint security solutions. Third, assess the potential impact of the activity. Fourth, based on the validated threat, implement the appropriate response, which may range from logging and further investigation to immediate blocking or escalation. This process ensures that actions are proportionate, effective, and compliant with organizational policies and relevant U.S. cybersecurity guidelines. Question 17. Investigation of a series of high-severity snort alerts indicating potential command and control, C2, communication originating from a critical server in the finance department. The alerts are triggered by a rule designed to detect outbound connections to known malicious IP addresses. The network administrator needs to determine the most appropriate immediate course of action. Option A. Escalate the alerts to the Security Operations Center, SOC, for further analysis and correlation with other threat intelligence feeds, without taking any immediate network-level action on the server. Option B. Immediately block all outbound connections from the suspected server to prevent further C2 communication, while simultaneously initiating a deeper forensic analysis of the server and network traffic. Option C. Temporarily disable the specific snort rule that is generating the alerts to reduce the noise and focus on other security events, planning to re-enable it after further investigation. Option D. Initiate a full network packet capture of all traffic from the suspected server and analyze it offline to confirm the nature of the communication before any action is taken. The correct answer is B. Immediately block all outbound connections from the suspected server to prevent further C2 communication, while simultaneously initiating a deeper forensic analysis of the server and network traffic. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security operations: the need to balance proactive threat detection with the potential for false positives and the impact on network performance. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting snort alert data and deciding on the appropriate response without disrupting legitimate business operations or overlooking a genuine security incident. The specific regulatory framework for this exam, 500-280 Securing Cisco Networks with Open Source Snort, implies adherence to best practices in network security as defined by Cisco and general cybersecurity principles, without referencing specific external legal statutes, unless explicitly stated for the exam's jurisdiction. The correct approach involves a systematic, evidence-based analysis of the snort alerts. This means correlating alerts with other network logs, understanding the context of the traffic, and verifying the suspicious activity through additional tools or techniques before taking drastic action. This aligns with professional best practices by prioritizing accuracy and minimizing collateral damage. It represents a responsible and measured response, ensuring that security measures are effective without being overly disruptive. Incorrect approaches fail to meet this standard of professional diligence. For instance, immediately blocking all traffic based on a single, unverified alert is a failure of due diligence. It can lead to significant business disruption and is not a data-driven decision. Another incorrect approach might be to ignore alerts altogether, which is a clear dereliction of duty and a failure to implement the security controls for which Snort was deployed. This directly contradicts the purpose of deploying a security tool like Snort. A third incorrect approach might be to rely solely on the alert severity without understanding the underlying rule or the specific network context, leading to misallocation of resources and potentially missing critical threats or overreacting to benign events. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve: 1. Understanding the alert. What rule triggered it? What is the source and destination? What is the payload if available? 2. Contextualizing the alert. Is this traffic normal for this segment of the network? Are there other related alerts? 3. Verification. Can the suspicious activity be confirmed through other means, e.g., firewall logs, endpoint logs, packet captures? 4. Risk assessment. What is the potential impact of the suspected threat versus the impact of taking action? 5. Action. Based on the verified risk, implement the appropriate response, which could range from logging and monitoring to blocking or incident response. Question 18. What factors determine the optimal configuration and deployment strategy for Snort within a Cisco network environment to ensure effective intrusion detection and prevention while adhering to U.S. regulatory compliance frameworks and maintaining network performance? Option A. The criticality of detected threats to organizational assets and compliance mandates, the network's current performance baseline, and the volume and severity of alerts generated by specific rule sets. Option B. the desire to log every single network packet for forensic analysis, and the ease of integrating Snort with existing network management tools. Option C, the personal preference of the security administrator for specific rule categories and the perceived complexity of tuning rules for optimal performance. Option D, the total number of Snort rules available in the latest community rule set and the maximum processing power of the Snort server. Correct answer is A, the criticality of detected threats to organizational assets and compliance mandates, the network's current performance baseline, and the volume and severity of alerts generated by specific rule sets. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security operations, balancing the need for detailed network visibility with the potential for performance degradation and the risk of generating excessive, unmanageable log data. The professional must consider the practical implications of Snort's rule set and its impact on network throughput and resource utilization, while also ensuring that critical security events are not missed. The challenge lies in making informed decisions about rule tuning and deployment that align with organizational security policies and operational constraints, all within the context of the specific regulatory framework governing network security monitoring. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven method for rule tuning and deployment. This begins with understanding the organization's specific threat landscape and compliance requirements, which are dictated by the relevant U.S. regulatory framework for network security. Prioritizing rules based on their criticality to detecting known threats and meeting compliance obligations, e.g., PCI DSS HIPAA. This guidelines is paramount. Implementing a phased deployment strategy, starting with a limited set of high-priority rules in a monitoring-only mode, allows for performance impact assessment without immediate disruption. Continuous monitoring of Snort's performance metrics, CPU, memory, packet drop rates, and log volume is essential. This data informs further tuning, such as disabling noisy or low-severity rules, adjusting thresholds, and optimizing rule logic. The goal is to achieve a balance where Snort effectively detects threats and meets compliance mandates without negatively impacting network operations. This aligns with the principle of least privilege applied to network monitoring, ensuring that only necessary and effective security controls are in place. Incorrect approach is analysis. Deploying all available Snort rules without prior analysis or tuning is professionally unacceptable because it ignores the potential for significant performance degradation, leading to packet loss and network instability. This directly violates the principle of maintaining network availability, a fundamental aspect of network security and operational integrity. Furthermore, the sheer volume of alerts generated by an untuned rule set would overwhelm security analysts, making it impossible to identify genuine threats and increasing the risk of missing critical security events. Failure to effectively monitor and respond to threats could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the organization is subject to mandates requiring timely detection and mitigation of security incidents. Disabling all Snort rules to avoid performance issues is also professionally unacceptable. This approach completely negates the purpose of deploying Snort, which is to provide intrusion detection and prevention capabilities. It represents a failure to implement necessary security controls and would leave the network vulnerable to a wide range of threats. Such a decision would likely violate regulatory requirements that mandate the implementation of security monitoring and incident detection mechanisms. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to proactive security and a failure to manage risk effectively. Implementing a complex, custom rule set without rigorous testing and validation is professionally risky. While custom rules can be powerful, they require meticulous development and testing to ensure they are effective, accurate, and do not introduce false positives or performance bottlenecks. Deploying untested custom rules can lead to unexpected network behavior, false alarms, or missed threats, all of which undermine the security posture and could lead to regulatory scrutiny if critical security events are not properly handled. This approach lacks the due diligence required for robust security deployments. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based and iterative approach to Snort deployment and rule management. This involves 1. Understanding the threat landscape and regulatory compliance obligations. 2. Conducting a thorough assessment of network infrastructure and performance baselines. 3. Prioritizing rule sets based on criticality and compliance requirements. 4. Implementing a phased deployment with monitoring and performance analysis. 5. Continuously tuning rules based on observed performance and alert data. 6. Documenting all configuration changes and their rationale. 7. Regularly reviewing and updating the rule set to adapt to evolving threats and organizational needs. This systematic process ensures that Snort is an effective security tool that enhances, rather than hinders, network operations and meets all applicable regulatory requirements. Question 19. When evaluating a persistent false positive alert generated by a Snort intrusion detection system rule designed to detect a specific type of exploit, which of the following actions represents the most professional and effective approach to resolving the issue while maintaining network security? Option A. Immediately disable the Snort rule that is generating the false positive to eliminate the alert noise and prevent potential disruption to network operations. Option B. Broaden the scope of the Snort rule to allow a wider range of traffic that might be related to the suspected benign activity, even if it deviates from the rule's original intent. Option C. Increase the alert threshold for the rule significantly to reduce the number of alerts without investigating the underlying cause of the false positive. Option D. Analyze the specific traffic patterns triggering the false positive. Research the rule's intended purpose and known exploit characteristics, and then implement a targeted modification to the rule or create a specific exception for benign traffic. The correct answer is D. Analyze the specific traffic patterns triggering the false positive, research the rule's intended purpose and known exploit characteristics, and then implement a targeted modification to the rule or create a specific exception for benign traffic. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security operations, balancing the need for real-time threat detection with the potential for false positives that can disrupt legitimate network traffic. The professional challenge lies in tuning Snort rules effectively to minimize both missed threats and unnecessary alerts, all while adhering to established security policies and potentially regulatory compliance requirements related to incident response and data integrity. Careful judgment is required to understand the nuances of network traffic patterns and the specific threats Snort is designed to detect. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic and evidence-based method for rule tuning. By analyzing the specific traffic patterns that trigger the false positive and cross-referencing them with known threat intelligence and the intended purpose of the rule, a security professional can make informed decisions about rule modification. This might involve adjusting thresholds, adding exceptions for known benign traffic, or even disabling the rule if it's deemed ineffective or overly disruptive. This methodical approach ensures that security controls remain effective without hindering essential business operations, aligning with principles of due diligence and risk management. An incorrect approach that involves blindly disabling the rule without investigation is professionally unacceptable. This action bypasses the security control without understanding the root cause of the false positive, potentially leaving the network vulnerable to the very threats the rule was intended to detect. This failure to investigate and remediate properly can lead to security breaches, which may have significant regulatory implications depending on the nature of the compromised data and the industry. Another incorrect approach, which is to simply increase the alert threshold without understanding the underlying traffic, is also professionally unsound. While it might reduce the immediate noise, it significantly weakens the rule's effectiveness by making it harder to detect genuine threats. This can lead to missed incidents, a failure to meet security objectives, and potential noncompliance with security mandates that require timely and accurate threat detection. Finally, an approach that involves modifying the rule to be overly permissive, allowing a wide range of traffic that is not strictly necessary for the rule's intended purpose, is also problematic. This broadens the attack surface and can lead to a false sense of security. It fails to uphold the principle of least privilege and can create blind spots in the security posture. The professional reasoning process should involve a structured approach to incident analysis. When a Snort alert is triggered, the first step is to investigate the alert and the associated traffic. This involves understanding the rule's purpose, examining the payload, and identifying the source and destination of the traffic. Based on this analysis, a determination is made whether the alert is a true positive or a false positive. If it's a false positive, the next step is to determine the most appropriate remediation strategy, which could involve rule modification, exception creation, or rule disabling, always with a clear understanding of the security implications. This iterative process of monitoring, analysis, and tuning is crucial for maintaining an effective security posture. Question 20. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing Snort for intrusion detection on a critical Cisco network segment offers significant security advantages, but concerns exist regarding potential performance degradation. Given the need to balance enhanced security with maintaining network availability and responsiveness, which of the following deployment strategies best addresses these competing priorities? Option A. Immediately deploy Snort with a comprehensive set of all available rules in inline blocking mode across the critical segment to maximize threat coverage from the outset, assuming the network hardware can absorb the processing load. Option B. Implement Snort on a separate, less critical network segment to test its performance impact without risking disruption to the primary critical segment, and defer deployment on the critical segment until a later, unspecified date. Option C. Disable Snort's deep packet inspection capabilities and focus only on signature-based detection to minimize its performance overhead on the critical segment, accepting a reduced level of threat visibility. Option D. Deploy Snort with a carefully selected subset of high-fidelity rules, initially in a monitoring-only mode on the critical segment, followed by a phased transition to inline blocking after performance baselines are established, and rule sets are further tuned based on observed traffic patterns. The correct answer is D. Deploy Snort with a carefully selected subset of high-fidelity rules, initially in a monitoring-only mode on the critical segment, followed by a phased transition to inline blocking after performance baselines are established, and rule sets are further tuned based on observed traffic patterns. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust intrusion detection with the operational realities of network performance and resource constraints. The professional challenge lies in making an informed decision that aligns with security best practices, regulatory compliance, and business objectives, without resorting to purely technical or purely cost-driven solutions. The chosen approach must demonstrate an understanding of Snort's capabilities, its impact on network traffic, and the potential consequences of misconfiguration or inadequate deployment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a data-driven, phased implementation that directly addresses the identified security gaps while mitigating performance risks. This aligns with the principles of responsible security deployment, which advocate for thorough testing and validation before full-scale implementation. Specifically, it acknowledges that Snort's effectiveness is directly tied to its configuration and tuning, and that gradual rollout allows for iterative refinement. This methodical approach also supports compliance with general cybersecurity best practices, which often mandate risk assessment and mitigation strategies. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on deploying Snort with default rules without considering network impact would be professionally unacceptable due to potential performance degradation, leading to network outages or significant latency. This could violate service-level agreements, SLAs, and negatively impact business operations, indirectly leading to regulatory scrutiny if critical services are affected. Another incorrect approach, which involves disabling certain Snort features to improve performance without a thorough risk assessment, is ethically problematic. It prioritizes speed over security, potentially leaving the network vulnerable to threats that those features were designed to detect. This demonstrates a failure to uphold the duty of care in protecting network assets. A third incorrect approach, which involves overinvesting in hardware without optimizing Snort's configuration, represents a misallocation of resources and a failure to leverage the full potential of the chosen technology. It suggests a lack of understanding of Snort's tuning capabilities and a reliance on brute force solutions rather than intelligent deployment. Professionals should approach such decisions by first conducting a comprehensive risk assessment to identify critical assets and potential threats. This should be followed by a pilot deployment of Snort in a controlled environment, allowing for performance monitoring and rule tuning. The decision to scale up should be based on the results of this pilot, ensuring that security objectives are met without compromising network stability. This iterative process, grounded in evidence and risk management, is the cornerstone of effective and responsible network security deployment.